afternoon. Thank you for being with us. Hey, Joseph, how are
Sure.
you?
It's so good to be with you. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to catch back up. I know you were doing a little bit of traveling and going out west, so you had a great trip. But I wanted to just jump right into it. We were talking a
Cool.
little bit about younger years and our teenage years, which had a lot of influence on us. So, can you bring us back into what brought you to this field?
So I have to preface and say I'm 55 and I'm still here and everything is good. But back then, things were not so good. And things were pretty desperate for me, actually. And I was bullied and beaten up a lot. And I contemplated ending my life several times a day, every
Mhm.
single day. Not normal for a teenager, no matter how difficult life for a teenager can be. Thinking about creating an end where there is no reversal is pretty dire. And so I had an existential crisis going on in my life, which was rooted around my self image and around my outer image. The way, well, like one of the things that people really berated me about was they claimed that I was really ugly. And I would hear it every single day, passing in between classes, every single day at school,
Uh,
without fail, the same people doing it. It was cruel and unusual punishment by any regular standard of bullying.
yeah.
That's what really happened. The gift of when something absolutely abject happens like that, if you can live through it, which I'm here to remind you again, I did. I'm here. Um, the thing that comes out of something so horrible is could be a gift. Um, they didn't give me a gift. I gave myself a gift. I had to turn all of that disempowerment around and create power for me. And the official preppy handbook was something that came into my life in the mid 1980s when I was in high school.
Right.
Probably some of you know about it. I know you do because we talked about this.
Right. And I live in Fairfield County, which is like it
Uber
can be super preppy.
right. And so this for me was something that gave me a system for living as much as it gave me a system for how to dress myself in a way that was new for a North suburban Chicago kid that, was told how ugly he was, needed to flip the script. And I couldn't like physically change myself. I couldn't, do something different with my hair necessarily. I couldn't become taller. I couldn't become, muscly. I couldn't like there were things that, I were beyond my control. But what I could control was what I wore and how that could potentially shift perception in the way people saw me. And this was an epiphany as a 15-year-old sophomore in high school that led me on the journey to doing everything that I've been doing for the last 40 years of my life. How do you like that?
Wow, that's amazing, and I know that we were sharing earlier about how impactful our teenage years are, and how image and how others perceive us can really help us or hurt us, or sometimes it's helpful, but then we get stuck in that look as well. Um, you mentioned that you have worked with an intern or two who has spent time with you after college or right before college, after high school or before college.
Yeah.
And again, those are really formative years, and some of the lessons you can learn and moving forward, how that can really change your perspective. And I always talk a lot about storytelling, and the earlier you learn how to shift a story, that you tell yourself or others have said to you, and you can shift that perception. It's the cup is half full rather than the cup is half empty. So it's a beautiful thing, what you do by helping others set their mindset, in a positive way, which is great. And when we're talking about the it factor, that is a great way to help people just propel forward, whether they're going into college. I work with some women in with domestic violence, and a young group of young ladies in Darien, Connecticut, and they help stories. So you can just look at the positive side of things, and knowing who you are. And it's about the stories you tell yourself. And one of the reasons I actually got into what I do, which was, I do a couple different things, but the speaking portion of things was really my concern about suicide. And I think this month is Suicide Prevention Month. And that's huge, because it's the stories we repeat to ourselves that we make them into something concrete. And so it's just beautiful that you have overcome that and learned how to shift that story
Oh, yeah. Let me
forward.
just tell
So,
you, long after the bullying ends, um, what's really scary and true, it could be true, it was definitely true of me.
mm,
I was so traumatized, I would re-traumatize myself constantly by reliving the experiences that I had, almost like I couldn't let go of the fact that this had happened to me. And it turned out that maybe I was like the fiercest bully of all,
mm,
because I was so damaged that long after they had all stopped, I was still like invisibly stabbing my soul.
yes,
Right?
yes,
And
totally.
this is the thing that we have to create like a complete break from. And sometimes, and I know this as someone who's had a lot of therapy, psychiatry. It's all good and it's all part of what we have to do for those of us who have been damaged in
Mhm.
those ways. Or it's one thing to be victimized of something, like I'm a survivor of a sexual situation. I didn't ask for that. I'm the victim of that. The
Mhm.
flip is to, how do you no longer be a victim of those things? And the bullying, a sexual attack, all these things, we have to find ways in our society to, and I hope that our conversation can help to do this for just
Yes,
one person. If we can create a safety zone, that it's okay to talk about it, that we don't have to stigmatize this stuff anymore, that by being open and honest about it in a trusting space, we
right,
create a shift, a transformational shift, where we no longer own that stuff and we're no longer owning being a victim. We once were of things, but now we're not. And why aren't we? It's not only because of the internal things that we've done. What external things can we do to shift ourselves that literally help us paint a different picture of the person who we really are? And this is where image making can be a very handy, tangible thing that we can do to enhance our stories. It is, to your point about storytelling, the way we show up in the world is this beautiful, awesome, powerful way that we can convey stories to ourselves
yes.
before we ever tell the story to another person.
Exactly, exactly. And that's part of the process. So we know that in the workplace, we're not going to sit there and talk about certain traumatic things that we've been through, but it starts with ourselves and looking at our experiences and processing that, and then coming out the other side and saying, okay, this crappy thing happened to me. but this is what I learned from it. And when I spoke at the grief conference a couple of weeks ago, one of the things we talked about was, I said, share with me one of the scars that you have. Just look at yourself and tell me about that scar and what did you learn from it. And it's just a great way to begin that process and say, okay, now I accept this experience that happened to me. It sucks, but what did I learn from it? And then in time, you've processed it and you're able to come forth and share some aspect, something that you learned about yourself. And especially as leaders, it's important to process things and say, okay, what is it that makes me different? I have scars or I have challenges that I've lived through. Maybe a difficult colleague that I work with. Yeah, that's a scar. You work with someone who's very hard to work with. But how did I look at things and how did I shift that perspective? And that's why internally and externally we go through different journeys. And what you do by helping people shift that story and come out the other side is huge in that process. So what about when you look at building that confidence to find that it factor? What do you find are probably some of the most challenging aspects for your clients?
I think the maybe it's the way that I have it structured. I don't
Uh-huh.
know that it ends up being too challenging for them. Um, but I can say that what can make it challenging is, and this is maybe going to be a little bit peculiar, but I have to demand of people that they be honest with
Mm,
themselves so that
mm,
they can be honest with me. And I make it as safe a space as possible for a person to be honest with self in front of me so that I can be the mirror and reflect back what they're giving me. So imagine if somebody is in the process of doing things with me and isn't actually telling the truth, or they're
mm,
withholding aspects of self that need to
okay.
come forward.
Mm,
Um, and then I serve as the mirror and present, here is a look for you. Here is a way of communicating a message or a series of messages about who you are in front of different audiences and so on. If somebody fails to understand what I'm presenting, I feel badly about that as a professional, but I have learned over years of doing what I do how to safeguard against that as best I can. So at least it can't be on me. What is really tough is when somebody cannot be honest with themselves. And I have a couple of
mm.
key stories like that that I could share with you, one of them if you want, but
And
that's
in humility too. Sometimes we don't share, our strengths. It's not just about, things that are hard, but we could be so humble that we just don't know how to share our strengths.
yeah.
So yeah,
And
share with me.
I think this is a great story. It's a terrible story, but it's a great example.
Okay.
Um, and I'll explain why in a second. So I had this client who had a medical issue and was really concerned about looking like, and I'm not saying that she should or shouldn't have done this.
Mhm.
She really felt the need to get the look of a trophy wife
Mm,
and that's what she told me. And I wasn't able to deliver that to her.
mm,
Um, she's Because of her medical condition, she isn't a tiny little adult. Um, she's a different size with a different kind of body and curves and everything
mhm,
that are not only normal, but some things are not normal, but are about her, but that are because of her medical condition. And because of that, I couldn't have things pressing against her tummy, and everything had to be sort of comfortable in a certain kind of way. And I was able to find plenty of things that worked,
Mm-hmm.
and were the right kinds of colors and patterns and all the things that would make for good image making. She couldn't see herself in these things because she was giving me responses that were based on not how she thought that she should see herself, but how her spouse needed to see her. So when
Ooh.
she answered me, she didn't answer me from her core, from her true self. She
Oh,
was
wow.
answering me from a place of being kind of a victim, like, I
Yeah.
need I need to be in this marriage because I need to be taken care of because I have this medical condition. You see how that
Oh, that's
completely
heartbreaking.
it's
Wow.
terrible. I felt
Oh,
really awful about the whole thing, but there was literally at that point nothing further that I could do to help her. It was really beyond my purview, and I
yeah.
had to tell her that she really needed to get some outside counsel to
Mhm.
help her through that part of her battle, and that if she could, get herself to a place where I hoped she could come back to, which was that she could have a sense of confidence in herself to be honest with herself about how she could show up as the best version of herself that she could
Herself.
be.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Maybe then that would even help her through her medical condition instead of dragging it on.
Yeah,
And
and that makes it worse too.
it was like
Any
exacerbating.
kind of medical condition, that kind of mindset.
So that's my terrible story, but it's a great example of how something can go absolutely awry. And
Mm,
then, of course, I've had most of my story examples are like legendary, and I could tell you all kinds of things that have gone the right way because most of the time they do. And because of these couple different experiences, really, in my whole career that went south like this, when we get started, I tell everybody, please, I beg of you, just tell the truth. Just no matter what resistance you think you should have around what is actually true, don't resist. This is your golden moment to tell the truth to yourself and me, because I am going to be your mirror. And if you don't like what I'm holding back up to you, I want you to absolutely love what you see. I want you to love that reflection. I want to mirror back to you all the goodness that you can create for yourself, and I'll
right,
help you co-create it. But it really emanates from you. It starts and ends with you.
right. And that's the way to have the walls come crumbling down too.
Yeah. So think about the invitation that is to
Mm,
somebody, like, oh, I can really be me. And that can be so scary for some people because they've never felt like they have ever held that power. But
no.
we always hold that power. And I know that personally because it goes back to the teenage story in high
Yeah,
school. The way that I transformed wasn't because I had therapy or anything. It's
right.
because I saw that I had the power. I had the power. I still have the power. I always will have the power. You have the power. If you're watching and listening to this, you have the power. No one should ever disempower you or take that power away from you. If anything, people around you in your life should only power you up and be like, hey, you have the power. You
Exactly.
can do this. You can get honest with yourself. You've got everything you need inside of you. Just
Yeah.
untap it. Let somebody help you tap into all that
Yeah.
power.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
so amazing when you can do that.
it is. And I think about time warp, I call it time warp, that sometimes people on the other side of things, they've been through their teenage years where they probably felt the most popular or we're the, sports, whatever, hero, cheerleader, or whatever it is, because they fell into that mold and that approval, and they're still stuck there. And
Yeah,
that's hard to move on as an adult, because now as a leader, it's like, no, we don't want you to be in a mold. Yes, we want you to be respectful of our how do you say, of our culture, but you can still be yourself. We want you to be an individual. So
yeah.
how that's the it factor. Now, how do you help someone recognize that it factor, and that outward confidence, from inside and coming out, and finding their own presence and style versus playing it safe?
Right. So I ask people to tell me about their personality. I have kind of a proprietary way of being able to ask, so it's not like in rapid fire, but it 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 happens, and I have it organized in a certain way that is really helpful and leads people to discover themselves, and to be able to identify how they see themselves and who they want to become. Like, what aspects of personality would they like to develop further? So it's an invitation to think about the future self, not just the person that we are in the moment. Uh,
Right.
and what that does is it takes people who have had you know, uh, the the cheerleading squad, or the football team, captain, or the people who were really like on the in crowd, in high school or college or something. How do they harness those qualities that help them be leaders in their earlier time of life? How can they actually reclaim that? Like, if they think
Right.
they've lost
As an
it,
individual, right?
you already have it. Maybe you just put it away.
Mhm.
It's time to bring it back out. And for people like me who never had it, in an obvious way, but it always lay dormant inside, it finding where you have it. Your it is like your special sauce, like your special energy.
Right.
When you can finally identify it through molding together what your personality and your core strengths are like, where I like to examine all those things, I then have a way of translating what all of that is into looks. So, somebody wearing, a plaid shirt, of this size scale, is someone who really likes to be friendly and outgoing. And, somebody who wears colors of, muted colors, is like this in combination with my checks. Like, I'm sending a message, which is, I like to be supportive. I want to lean into you and really like love on you and give you everything that you need and make it safe for you to be, in my presence. Like, every single thing that we wear is encoded with psychological language that we, I'm an expert, so I understand what it is. But as an onlooker, you might look at something and not really know what it is that you're feeling, but
Right.
you are seeing something and you are feeling it, and it
Totally.
is visceral. And you
Totally.
either get it and you're like, dude, I want to be around that some more, or I do not like this energy, and I am going to go cross the street and walk other side of the street because I have to GTF away from this person, right? So
Totally.
that's a feeling, and those feelings are faster than any fluency that I could teach a person. But wow, when you're in the moment and there isn't any time to learn what the feelings are like, or what the messages really are,
Right,
ooh,
right.
we act and react really fast around people. So when you have a message to deliver, and you're in a leadership role, or you're leveling up into taking on more roles and responsibilities,
Yeah.
even as a parent at home, um, which is a huge responsibility, by the way, talking about how hard it can be to raise kids and how
Mhm.
hard it can be to be a kid. To be able to be like a leader at home, that is to say, yes, I am here to be, your disciplinary factor, but also to love you and to support you and to, let you fail and let you succeed and let you have your experiences, and that I will catch you. I will be here for you. I will help you pick yourself up.
Yeah.
There are
Or
ways,
fail.
yeah, there are ways as a parent just to be able to like show up and be that presence in your child's life, and the way that you look in front of them is so instrumental. um, we can't we can't understate how important it is to show up with a certain kind of presence. So, to kind of help people amplify what that it factor is and to be able to maintain it or sustain it, I
Right.
care very much about creating constancy and consistency for how my clients look, for how they show up. That you can be a little different facets of self every day, but there's a through line for everything.
Yeah.
And when you create that look for yourself, you feel it for yourself. The putting on of your clothing every single day is something that we all take for granted, okay? But it's an action. And if you can conjure a feeling of how you really want to come across and a vision for what does that feeling look like, it translates into our clothes. That's what it translates into. We shouldn't be so casual about the we can be relaxed in how we show up, but we shouldn't treat casually the way we think about our clothing or the way we show up, because it's an environment. When we put it on, it just changes our own countenance, the way we come across to people, and the way we feel about ourselves. If
Yeah.
we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and we're like, I am not going out for this day. Like I have to switch things around. And you put something on that makes you feel so good about yourself.
Right.
You're so
Yeah.
grateful for this day. And you put on something that you're like, despite all factors of, waking up on the wrong side of the bed, I'm in a good place right now. And you can set aside whatever those things were, and in an hour after you're dressed in the nice thing, you're going to even forget what the heck that was even all about. That is really what your it factor is. You are not what you woke up on the wrong side of the bed with. You are when you are more in your flow. When you're in your flow,
Right. In your
that's what
flow. That's it.
that's what your it factor is. So if you can dress to put yourself into your flow state, whoa, this is
Yeah.
a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I as a woman, I think that I don't know if women do it more than men, but I have like different looks. So I have my like biker look, and I have my, Greenwich Avenue look. I have my, hippie look. And but there are certain things that always reflect me, depending how I want to show up or how I'm feeling that day. But like you said, yeah, be your own character on that day. The sad thing is when people just want to look like, okay, I'm just putting on this, it's kind of like a mask. There's a difference between putting on and being in your flow at that moment on that day, and being, appropriate, still being appropriate for where you are, um, and
Yeah.
putting on a mask. We're not looking there. Those are two different things. I never put on a mask ever to cover up how I feel, or how I'm showing up. And that it factor is showing up. And if you can work with someone who, like you, who helps you maybe process a little bit of that, like, and be able to show up and feel comfortable for what version that you want to show up as on that day or in that function, or whether it's online or at a meeting or on stage. It's huge to have someone else reflect that and listen to you, to help you reflect back and solidify the character that you are. You just feel so much better, so much more powerful, and you go from to freedom like so quickly when you can turn that on. It's huge.
For sure. I think the idea of fake it till you make it is like cosplay. It's like, putting on a costume in order to try to be something that
Yes,
you're
that's the
not.
mask crap. It's like you don't
Right.
need a mask.
And I'm with you. I love for you that you have your biker look and your Greenwich Ave look and because we all wear invisible hats at different times of the day, at different
Yep.
times of the week, at different seasons, of life. We are ourselves, and yet there's a nuanced aspect to ourselves that has to come out. And I think it's important to come out as yourself in all these different ways.
Mhm.
First and foremost for you, because if you don't get to do that for yourself, you don't feel whole and complete. And
Exactly.
the whole idea of integrity and to live with integrity is to be whole and complete.
There's an amen.
You can't, do that. You can't wear all the costumes, if you will, or all the facets of yourself all the time when you're a multifaceted person.
Yes.
You deserve and need to allow for yourself the opportunity to dress, show up, live out, and have the experiences that make you be a whole person. So not only should you show up wearing your biker looks, you should literally go out and get on your motorcycle and go speed out. Like you should go do your thing. Those things to me are and be responsible and safe are really important because they allow you to be who you are. And then
Right.
when you take that ensemble off and you get off the bike and you are now,
I'm going to a meeting, or it's the nicest compliment is when I'm like dressed if I was, in Greenwich, and I've had older ladies in Greenwich stop me on the street and say, "You look beautiful. I don't see women dress up like that much anymore." It's like, and all I'd have is like the simplest dress, nothing, in flats. But it's just about knowing my body, my style, and my values. And knowing I don't need to flaunt anything. I don't need to get looks from someone else. It's really about feeling so comfortable with yourself. Um, and that's the it factor for me, I think, for those women to stop me, older ladies on the avenue, like there's no bigger compliment.
And believe me, it is your it factor shining through, and it's beyond what you're wearing. It's beyond what
Oh,
you're wearing because they noticed you. They didn't just notice what you were wearing. And you got to remember this too. This is true for all of us. Um, Somebody will stop you and compliment you on your bag or your blouse or your tie or your jacket or your outerwear or something that you're wearing, whatever it is.
right, right.
It may be the thing that they like notice on the surface about
Initially,
you,
right.
but they are really noticing you.
Yeah.
Uh, it, and
Your
when
smile, your eyes, that's usually what people say to me. It's my smile or my eyes,
and most people won't stop and pay you such an intimate compliment. So they go to the more objective thing, like
Yes.
a thing you're wearing.
Yes.
That happened to me yesterday with a pair of glasses I had on. Somebody, I was getting a coffee and she said, your glasses are amazing. And I was like, thank you. And I really appreciated the fact that she saw the glasses, but honestly, I showed up in,
Yeah.
even in my workout hat and everything. Like there was something that she saw about me. And you
Right.
know what? She was like, in that moment, in that micro moment, she was extra kind to me. She filled
Yes.
my coffee all the way to the tippy top. Like, she smiled back at me. This is I'm breaking it down almost in micro format. Like, what happens when somebody sees that you are at one with your it factor and it's showing? What is happening is the ladies are saying something to you on the street. You're smiling at each other. You're looking for, something to say kind back to them because you're so grateful and
Yes,
appreciative.
totally, that community vibe is coming back, and especially after COVID. We were all huddled in our little, castles, but when you're in community, there are no castles, and that's huge to bring that back. So and sometimes even younger or older, we get stuck in a certain way, comfortable way. And it's important for us to show up as our own characters, and we're more community that way. That's why in person is huge. And how to just reformulate and just find that pulse again, that community pulse again is looking deeper within yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. Have you found kind of different aspects that maybe you didn't really seem to have to pull out of people before COVID versus after? Or any more
Um,
like insecurities or
I
different things
think
that come up?
I think a lot of it is actually the same. I've
Hmm.
not really changed anything in my process,
Okay.
from the before times to now.
Okay.
Um, I think when you think about it like this, Michelle, the invitation to think about who you want to become
Mm,
is an always evolving thing. And for people who have come through COVID, and are new to working with me, there's a lot that people feel like, yeah, I really want to work on this, that, or the other aspects of self. And those things might not have been factors for them before,
mm,
but it's become that way now. I don't question people about the things that they want to focus on. I blindly, if you will, accept what somebody tells me that they want to focus on.
right.
Um, and I like to see the patterns that people form about the kinds of things about a personality that they really want to develop. If somebody were to say to me, well, I'd like to make another $100,000 this year or something like that, like, people will sometimes have a financial goal, or they'll say, my goal this year, or my goal out of working with you, is I want to become, a fully variable partner in my law firm, or, whatever it is. There's probably some sort of financial gain to be had around it, but not always. Sometimes people who are already at the top, like someone who's the CEO of a company, uh, isn't looking to be shaken off the top of their tree.
Right.
Um, but they want to stay there and they want to be more effective as a leader. So
Okay.
what are the things that they could do? So not everything is monetary. What I find is that when people want to assign themselves things to work on, I say, hey, the thing that's going to help you achieve this other goal, whether it's a monetary goal or like a personal life goal, or I just want to be the best me I can be or the best leader I can be, I always come back and say, I don't know how yet, but these 5 or 6 things or 2 things that you identify that you really want to work on developing about yourself, working on developing those things and letting yourself show up as that person, even
Mm,
before you have fully developed those qualities, traits, and characteristics, but you start showing up that way and you imbue yourself with the energy to become more of those parts of self.
right.
When you do all that, you're going to achieve this thing. And by golly, it just like, I don't know, it works that way. It's fail safe. I've never seen it not work. and I have watched people level up to become like heads of companies under this premise. I, I, I've seen a lot of very cool stuff happen in my career, and I'm like a kid. I just feel like, what the heck have I developed? What have I envisioned for people that, you know, it is permission. It is permission to actually
Yeah.
be your own it factor, your own energy source. It exists
Right.
with, as I said before, it exists within. And to be able to help guide somebody to see it, to feel it, to live it out, to show up every day. I only spend finite amounts of time with people. People have to get out and live their lives every day and do their thing. And wow, when they show up consistently, constantly, day in, day out, showing up as that self, they're achieving, and then they get there, and often at an accelerated pace that they didn't see coming.
Right, right. There's a lot of when I spoke at a SHRM event last month, there was a there was a team there that spoke, and I sat in on their session after mine, and they actually help people within a college, Connecticut college, and they help people with their leadership goals. They want to go into leadership, so they work with ordinary, regular administrative people within that college, and they work with them for 9 months, helping them to look at different aspects of moving into leadership roles. And
Mm-hmm.
what you do is part of that. I think that yes, you can learn certain tools, but one of the things they say is you have to be able to show up and present as a leader. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
one of the presentation skills, and like to be a CEO or something, there are leadership skills that you have to work on, and there's a certain it factor that they don't talk about, but you go into the real deep personal stuff to show up as that it factor in leadership. Or like you said, attorneys, you have to really have an very individual it factor, I think, as an attorney. Because anyone, you could say, well, lots of people do such and such, different aspects um, of legal things. But when you show up as a real, I keep using the word character because people are just even more afraid to be an individual. Um, that's huge.
Yeah. What we're talking about, I think, is things that are our
Yeah,
differentiators. We
yeah,
can't just be different, because that's not special enough. We're all different.
yes,
And when we're all different, then we're all the same. But if we understand the things that really are our differentiators, it's like, that's why I spend so much time focused around personality and strengths, because
right.
there's a special combo, and also looking at a person's physicality, like a person's coloring and a person's energy through color and all those things. When I see all these different factors, physical factors, non-physical factors, internal factors, external factors, all coming together, and I'm sort of painting this, mosaic picture of a person
Right.
in my head. That is the image of the person. And then I go out to go, like, pull that look together as a cohesive wardrobe, which I call a look.
Okay.
Kinds of things that, really help a person show up and be unique in their own way. If you think about it, like, there's this thing, the bell curve, and most people are on that bell. That's why there is such a thing as the bell. That's why there's that big fat part of the bell, and the rest of it is like a flat line. Well, I don't like to be in front of the bell curve. I don't really want anyone to, because if you're in front of the bell curve, to me, that feels like you're a laggard.
Mm,
Few people will be on the other side of the bell curve, like they're operating on some extreme level that is almost inhumane or inhuman. I don't know. Maybe it's inhumane as well. Maybe we're putting too much pressure on ourselves to get over all the way to the extreme. Like we have to be severe overachievers. Most of us are really on that bell curve for a reason. It's
Mm,
wherever we are, we have the ability to kind of like jump up, jump up and make ourselves more visible, make ourselves more known for that very special thing that we are really good at doing, and
mm,
for our very special way of being, not just different, but unique, something special where our gifts exist. And we all have a chance to shine that way. So sometimes, when we're talking about leadership, even leadership can sound, well, I work with a lot of leaders, so I think sometimes leadership can sound very bland, like
yeah, yeah,
there are
yeah.
a lot of leaders. It can be really boring thinking about leader. But if you really think about what kind of leader you want to be, or what kind of attorney, to your point in that example,
To
you
pop out.
yeah, you've got to be able to really stand out in a way that is
Mm,
unique and based on not only what your specialty is, if you're a law practitioner, for example, like what makes you so great at practicing that kind of law? If you are running a technology firm, what are the life experiences that you have had and the on the job experiences that you have had, and even the things that you haven't had, that help you be exactly the kind of person who you can be. Like
right. And
one
connect
time,
with other people in the company or clients. Totally.
yeah, these things add up to how we are better suited for the
Hmm.
moment than other candidates for, in an open role, kind of a situation. Why should you be the person that fills that role? Why are you the expert that gets to fill that gap where somebody really needs that expert help that they cannot do for themselves? Sometimes
Hmm.
that's what happens with me, right? Because I am really specialized, hyper niched, and on a whole other level compared to any personal shopper, wardrobe stylist, personal stylist, image consultant. I I have a whole other process and way of thinking and way of approaching people and seeing humanity that
Right.
nobody else is doing. So, and I get to talk about that all the time. It's one of those things that helps people understand, yeah, you're too much for me, but or in the right cases, wow, I didn't even know that I needed that, but
Right.
I need all that. How do we make that work? So those are the things that we all get to do. That's how we elevate who we are, and showing up with our fuller sense of self and our full presence. All of that can, play into how we succeed and find joy in our everyday
Right.
lives.
Right.
What we should do.
Right. Yeah. And you have a certain intuitive way. You were sharing that you work with clients, which I really appreciate, as far as the colors, and
Oh yeah.
you mentioned
Well,
that.
we didn't do this before, but I wonder if we'll be able to do it if we want to give it a go. But you'd have to really like move in super close and like let me see your eyes really, really, really
Okay.
close
All
up.
right. Let's test this.
But I don't know. This is a live experiment. We have to do,
Okay. All right. I'm the guinea pig.
but if you
So
can
what do I do? I just look real close in the
in the
there.
camera
I don't
and
know how close because my camera zooms.
oh, then it zooms. Oh no. Well, I want to see
I don't
what
know if
I
I'll be
want
able to do this.
really want to see what your eye color is. Describe to me your eye color. Just
Uh,
describe it.
yeah, it's hard to tell here. They're kind
Yeah,
of they're
they're brown.
brown.
But
I don't
is
know.
there an undertone? Are they greenish brown? Do they go redder?
A little hazily.
Okay, hazel, but still brown.
Brown, yeah, brown with a touch of hazel.
So, okay, this is one of the things that I love to do with people live and in person, and I get like almost like hyper close up, like, really, really into your
Um,
like
see it on. It's like I have this camera that just like moves on its
it's
own.
very reactive, I know.
It's,
Normally my camera would do that too, but it's not doing that right now.
I
And
know.
so it the thing that I see with eye color, for example, eyes really are the window to the soul.
Mm,
And what what I would see were I to be able to really gaze into your eyes, the way I should, the way I would prefer to, I would see the brown in your eyes as a quality around being a very deliberate person.
mm,
We don't know each other that well, but I do sense about you from things I know about you, even the way that we prepared for this conversation today, that you prepared for this conversation. You are you are deliberate, you are organized, you are like, "This is how I set it all up, here you go." Uh, and that that is something that comes from, like, it doesn't come from the brown of your eyes, but what it means is that the brown of your eyes is really telegraphing to the world when we see you show up close in front of us. What we see is that you are that deliberate person. Again, most of us don't understand the psychology of the color, but
mm,
we get a feeling, we get a sense. The way that we are made physically is an enhancement of exactly who we are from the inside. So
mm,
I'm describing, like, brown is a physical attribute of your eye color, but I'm describing something about you that is much more soulful. I'm describing something about who you be. Now, the hazel part of your eyes, is a really interesting facet because, um, I have to really see your eyes, but blended with the brown, um, I would describe the brown meets hazel as something sagey. And
mm.
sage, like if we were to go get a bundle of sage and burn
Oh,
it, and
right.
right?
To cleanse. Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of healing that you offer people. And I know that you do this because you inspire people in your talks, when you address people. I know that when you're coaching and guiding people, you're offering them, a lot of TLC. And I know that when you talk about your family with me, um, and how loving you are towards them, it's not just out of obligation, it's out of a real kind of affection.
Mm,
um, and in a way, when you had your own experiences younger growing up and you didn't get certain things that maybe you needed, you provide that for people in your life, like your loved ones. And
right.
that might not provide a kind of healing for them because they don't know that they were missing anything, but it provides a kind of healing for you, that you are a provider of such affection and love for other people. And so in your eyes, I can see, with those colors and that kind of blended combination, that the universe made you to be exactly this way in order for you to live out and to exude to us as onlookers that this is who you are.
Right.
And that
Thanks.
is who you are.
Thanks. It's so funny. A comment that I get so often from strangers is, "Do I know you from somewhere?"
Huh.
I mean, it's happened so much to me, and now I just say, um, we haven't met, but if you haven't smacked me, no one has smacked me yet, so it's in a good way that I look familiar to people. I said, I don't know if it's the Chilean or the Italian in me,
Well,
but
in a way, it can also just be the energy that you give off, because your energy is so, um, warm, kind, open-hearted, and good. And what people want is they want to be around that energy. It's like, "Have I met you before? Have I have felt good energy before, like you." And your physical characteristics belie the fact that there is that feeling of goodness. I mean, you really are that way, because we've talked a few
Yeah.
times. You're just always that way, and I love that for you, and I think that that is the way that people receive you. But again, people I'm saying the thing that nobody will really say out loud, because it almost feels like too intimate. So, but people will ask the more base question, like, have we met before? That's
Right.
that's the base question. But if you really dug down and really got to the heart of it, so I'm just skipping ahead telling you, this is what people are feeling when they encounter you. And when they catch your gaze with your eyes the way they are, I mean, you're not like staring at people and looking really scary at them, but like you have like a soft, easy gaze with people, just like you are right now. That's how
Right.
you are. You're being normal. And then you blend that with your eye color and your skin tone having a stronger contrast to your very dark hair. You look bold and open and warm and like I said, deliberate and healing with people. And
Thanks.
that's the vibe that you give off. And that vibe is an it factor.
Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, and that's why I like, and I mean, it's great you and I have met virtually. And so I'm grateful that my, I don't know, personality is still able to come, across. Um, but what I love about working in person with people is I get that people give me that same feedback. They're like, we know if something needs to get done, you're the one, number one. And the other thing people always say is, I get such positive energy from you. We like having you in the office. Um,
Yep.
so thank you. You've said, things that I've heard said about me. So thank you. Very kind.
Without having known all that.
But I haven't known all that. Yeah, you're pretty good. So
That's my
now people know how to work with you, which is so helpful. You do just very intuitive work, and it's very special.
I don't look at anybody and just think, well, I can take one look at you and know everything. I do part of that, but I everything is a study. Everything is a more in-depth kind of study of a person, because if a person is working with me, that person really deserves to know more about themselves than they ever knew. And so I really care about making sure that we all know more about ourselves. And I've been my own guinea pig on my own journey of life. And I know myself because I've put myself through my own rigors. I wish I had a me that I could have gone to
Yeah.
years ago. I don't know where I would be. I would be maybe light years ahead of where I am. I'm fine with where I am. But, like I didn't have a me. And I see what has happened with people who I've had the distinct pleasure and honor of working with. And I've seen where they go and where they are and who they have come to become. And it blows me away. And I'm so thrilled to play such a pivotal role in the lives of these people.
Yeah, I mean, you've shared with me how you've worked with husband and the wives in different business settings, and their children have been have been sent to you from their parents. So you really have a deep sense of the people that you work with. So I really, really, that's what really stood out to me about you, Joseph, and your story. How you experienced very difficult times in your life, but you didn't allow that to be your identity, which is huge. I mean, especially in the days of people having traumatic, experiences. And it's not to say that in the past people didn't have traumatic experiences. Generations have had traumatic experiences, but your appreciation matches up with my appreciation for, even though there has been certain traumatic things in my family generational line, I respect that. I give it reverence, but I'm also not carrying that on my back. Um, that's for people to process, but I can't carry that for someone else. But it can be part of my appreciation and compassion for others. But I'm not going to carry that flag. I'm not doing that because this is now, and I need to show up in a caring way for other people to help them move through difficult experiences and say, what have I learned? So I really uh, connect with you on that. Sharing your story and helping other people appreciate and work through different experiences to say, who am I today? Who am I? Not who was my family member or whatever. Like, who am I? And it's a beautiful and important thing to help people connect with.
I
So
love that. And
yeah,
I want to reiterate that and say, who am I now?
yes,
Now.
yes,
We
now.
have the moment now. My favorite poet wrote a lyric, it turned into a song, I guess, but the moment now is all we ever have.
Oh, right. And we did talk about music. You mentioned, was it Fleetwood Mac? What was your favorite song? You had a mantra that helped you get through very traumatic times in your high school. What was the song sometimes you used as your mantra?
Oh yeah, it's a Stevie Nicks song. It's called
Yes.
"Think About It," and she would sing in this song. You're I know you'd like to come away, baby. You can't come. Your fortune is your life's love. And I thought, come away for me at that time was how do I get out of the hell I'm in? Come away. Come away for
Mhm.
me was the end. You can't come. I was like, she forbade me from ending things.
Giving up.
Your
Yeah.
fortune is your life's love. And I would think to
Mhm.
myself constantly, I can't end my life because I don't know what my life's love is. I don't have my fortune. And I need to know what my life's love is because I'll find my fortune. Your fortune is your life's love. And I am telling you, those words are the words that I live by to this day.
Ah,
It's more important to me than, you know, my religious upbringing. It ties back into my faith belief actually and my values. And
mhm.
I try to impart that upon everybody. I think it's a nice way to kind of wrap up everything we're talking about. I appreciate that you brought that back in because because I think for all of us, we're duty bound. We
Mm,
have a birthright, which is we all should find our life's love or loves. We should find them. We should live them out. We should be love. We should be the light for ourselves and for those around us.
mm,
Capital L.
right.
We should be that. And the way that we do that is by tapping into essentially what is our it factor.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
different for every one of us. And if we
Yes.
could all tap into that, we would all be flowing at a higher level. We would find more joy in every day. We would find more fulfillment in every day. So, yeah, I'm an image consultant, but I don't really care as much about fashion. You can look stylish, but what I really
Mhm.
care is that you are optimizing yourself, that you are maximizing yourself, that you are activated on, living out who you can be. And
Exactly.
at the end of it all, besides the official preppy handbook, I owe a lot of my philosophy to this beautiful little Stevie Nicks song.
There we go. All right, Joseph, I have your website here, and hopefully people will, be ready to connect with you and find their own special it factor. So thank you very much.
Thanks
And
for having me. It's been a blast.
all right, I'll see you later. Bye, Joseph.
Bye.